Hi, this is Bob Samuels from Tech Resources. Welcome to another exciting, entertaining uh, podcast, interactive with some special guests today. And today I have with me the wonderful Jessica Cow from Adobe and my special colleague and co-host Spencer Bradley. So if you can give a little bit of an introduction to people that may not know you already, about something, about your background in AI, about B2B, and a fun fact that someone wouldn't know from looking at your LinkedIn profile. So, Jessica, if you want to start.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm Jess Cow. I'm the director of B2B go-to-market transformation here at Adobe. I come from being a 15-year professional in the marketing operations and marketing technology space, having been an operator all those times really in the B2B SaaS space and previously in the healthcare and life sciences space. So I've seen a lot of different situations in a lot of different places. I've owned everything from tech to analytics to PMO to web to paid media. So all the things. And right now, what I do is I work with some of the largest companies who are going through transformation, and AI is about technology. And so it's just another piece of technology that is changing the game. So I'm really excited to be talking about what's old, what's new, what's borrowed, and what's blue. A fun fact about myself. Which part? There are two, maybe three. I'm a yoga teacher. I've been a yoga teacher longer than I've been in marketing ops and marketing technology. I actually bring a lot of yogic principles into how I run a team, how I think about marketing technology. So that's that's your fun fact from me for the day. How about that?
That's a good one. Yeah, I need
I
that.
love
I
it.
need that yoga. I need the relaxation. And it's wonderful. Spencer?
Absolutely. Thanks, Bob. And Jessica, it's so good to be on another conversation with you. My name is Spencer Bradley. I'm the Vice President of Strategic Partnerships here at Tech Resources. And I have been in the B2B tech and marketing space for the better part of 15 years now. Worked for about 12 years at Solutions Review, which was a B2B tech publishing company, and have run a whole slew of various B2B marketing and demand gen initiatives across my time at Solutions Review as well as now with Tech Resources. So it's great to be here and looking very much forward to this conversation in a very transformative time period, in this space. So it's really exciting. And a fun fact about me that most might not know is that I'm actually an avid motorcycle rider. So my dad got me into that a few years back, and it's a whole family affair. My brother, my sister, and I, we all have motorcycles, and we really enjoy to do that in the nicer weather.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, thank you I'm happy to have you both. We also have a great live audience of specially handpicked attendees. We would like you to participate. Raise your hand or add a question or a comment in the chat. We'll bring you up into the virtual stage to interact with Jessica and Spencer, and hopefully it's a great interactive conversation all around. So looking forward to that. Jessica, your background, your PhD is of interest. Spencer, if you want to start the first question.
Absolutely, absolutely. So Bob and I were talking about this before the podcast, and we were really interested in that because, like Bob just mentioned, it is certainly unique. So when you made the leap from the lab to go to market at Adobe, what was the one the one scientific truth, if you will, about human behavior that actually worked better in the boardroom than it did at in the petri dish, if you will.
Well, the common thread, because I get that question a lot. I get that question probably everywhere I go because it's kind of different and unique. I did 15 years as a cancer researcher sitting in the lab or standing in the lab before I came and did and transitioned to high tech go to market. And a lot of people are wondering, like, what? How is it connected? Like that seems so, often like left field. And it's actually the common thread which is my PhD is in predictive analytics of breast cancer. So
Hmm.
looking at all of your genetic markers, at that point it was 30,000. Now we can sequence your genome. So there you have millions and millions of data points. But you're basically doing unsupervised hierarchical clustering. You're doing like basically trend analysis and you get like all of this data. You have certain proteins or certain signals that light up, and you're like trying to tell a story of like, why do we see these signals light up when you have more aggressive breast cancer versus not? You're telling stories with data, hint, hint, right? And so if you think about it, instead of looking at patients and all of their tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, if not millions of data points, you replace those column headers and rows with prospects and customers and all of the digital signals, and you're looking for clustering effects. Basically, it's lookalike modeling, and you're trying to predict who will most likely be a customer or spend, etc. It's the same question. You're just changing the headers and the rows. You're telling story with data. What are we doing in marketing with testing and optimization? You're creating an experiment, you're testing it, you have hypothesis, you're measuring it and getting those insights so you can optimize. It's the exact identical thing that we do every day in go-to-market. So I've been bringing scientific rigor and teaching marketers how to be a scientist.
I love it. That is wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So I'm going to introduce poll questions along the way. The first one is on the customer experience, the customer's journey, if you will. Um, and so here's the first poll question, if our audience can chime in. Basically, what's killing the CX vibe? What's working well for you? So, Jessica, what do you find is most helpful or hurtful as far as that whole CX vibe during
I
the
have to
buyer journey?
I have to pick one? That's too right? I mean, right? I mean, like, that's not, I want to hear what the audience says, but if you think about it, what's the common thread? All of that is about customer experience. All of those things is almost like a virtual slap in the face of your customer experience, right? It's like we're as on the other end, as a customer on the receiving end of this customer experience, if you think about generic content, it's like, well, you know, you don't really know me. You don't really understand my problem. I mean, if I had to like gut check, I would do dead links. It's a very tactical thing, but think about it. You're searching for something, you're trying to solve a problem, and it's like, right? It's like in your face, like, come on. It's like when you think about decorating your house and it's just like it's all the I don't know. I have a 10-year-old and a 6-year-old. So the immediate thing that comes to mind is, like Halloween and you don't want anybody to come to your house. What do? You turn off all the lights, right? It's almost like you turned off all the lights, and there is no excuse for that today in this day and age with deadlings. I'm like, we're not relying on humans to go check for deadlings. I mean, I used to run the web ops team, and so it's just like people would submit tickets into my team about like, look, this is a deadline, this is a 404. I'm like, there is absolutely no excuse with that. Especially when we have AI agents that can go and check and surface all of these things for you, so there's no
It's
excuse.
so true. It's so true, and I love that analogy of Halloween and turning off your lights because everybody knows that the dark house in the neighborhood is the one that doesn't want any customers, and we need to as marketers and go to market practitioners, we need to be able to find those brand killers before they drive those customers away. And like you had said, I think with with what we have at our disposal with the AI today, it's incredibly helpful to be able to identify those again before you're pushing customers away and you become that black house on the street. So I really like that analogy.
I like
It's
that too.
it's yeah.
So
Well, we're
here's
making a
here's
split. Look at that, right? I'm like,
so
you're making me choose.
yeah. Well, I think everybody else probably had the same thing. I should have made it multiple choice, but single. It's pretty split. Pretty evenly
Right?
split.
Yeah.
They're all horrible. Anybody want to chime in to defend or explain your answer? But
While
yeah,
we're
so
waiting for that, I mean, because you mainly choose. The reason why I put dead links is I think it's all of those. I feel like it's a door closing. I feel like the dead link is the hardest slam the door in my face. I don't know. That's how that was the rationale behind why I chose that one.
yeah, good. So I'm gonna bring Venkat at the from Flexera up to ask his question. And then we've got Christopher will be next.
Hey, thanks,
Hey,
Bob.
Venkat, nice to see you.
Nice to see you, and nice to see you here, Jessica. That's good insights. And I just wanted to since Bob gave an opportunity to justify the response, I think in a race of AI, where AI is writing bulk of the content, I thought, to me personally, having run into generic content, okay, is a personal vibe killer, right? So you try to, work with, a particular brand, and then you see that bulk of the content is either AI generated, or it lacks a personal brand touch to it, So that's like, oh, people who are heavy AI users, they can easily say whether a particular content is AI generated. There are typical, identifiers that we can pick up, which says, oh, in this era of, right, and paragraphs that start with that are like, oh, this brand heavily relies on AI, which is good, okay, which is not too bad as well. But a lack of curation of, content and putting in generic content is a personal mood killer for me.
Right?
Yeah,
It's human. This human led. I'm anyway. I have so many thoughts around AI, around how I think people have a in general. That was people like the generic you of all the universe out there of people. That we talk to, especially in go to market, especially in high tech. I think hype. AI hype versus AI reality. Like people have this like expectation that AI is the savior and can save anything and everything's a LLM wrapper and like, oh, just ask AI. I'm like, the whole, like you said, garbage in, garbage out. Well, who do you think is putting in the garbage? Humans. Right? And as humans, we actually, it takes a skill to actually give AI the context that it needs to enhance what you're doing. And I think there's so much hype right now just with like all technology. It's cool. I mean, that's how we evolve. It's all the whole cycle. But it's like we have to actually be strategic and give it not garbage and give it context. And giving context and communicating that is human, right? And I think yeah, I mean there's I'm sure we've heard a lot about like AI slop. Creating lots more slop is not the answer. That just actually exacerbates the problem. Now we have more generic content that we can roll our eyes at.
All
Great,
right.
right? And like, okay, it's cheaper, we produce more, but we haven't dug ourselves out of the problem yet, have we? So
I
it's really
think you
about,
said it perfectly. Oh, sorry, go
no,
ahead.
go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think you said it perfectly during a previous conversation that we had that it's just shifting the bottleneck, and AI isn't necessarily the magic bullet, but it's something that is exactly what it should be, a tool, for us to work alongside. But if we're creating, like you said, slop and just a boatload of additional content, but it doesn't have that, strategic mindset behind it, then it's shifting the bottleneck in different areas, which I thought was really interesting when you
Right.
mentioned that during our last conversation.
Yeah, I mean, everyone is just right. Like the low hanging fruit that everyone does, we all do it, right? Which is let's just go AI automate the things that we were already doing instead of okay, we're looking at it like piecemeal, right? Okay, content. Well, we AI generate content. And it's
Mhm.
one piece of it. It's like, was it the right content? And then now your pipe, right? Content is the fuel. People demand more personalized content. But the pipe to activate those is still this big. So now you're trying to jam a whole bunch more volume, trying to get into this little pipe. You've just shifted the problem down. So you really have to think it about end to end, and you have to re-engineer your entire process to really think about, well, what is the thing that I'm trying to do here? I'm trying to get to personalization, hyper personalization. And then what I've done is not done. I've actually moved further away because I've just created more stuff, and that doesn't help. What AI is actually really good at doing is actually being able to provide the context at a level that we weren't able to be before, right? Like I could never know, I would never like the market segmentation of one, right? I would never be like, okay, Bob needs this, and I want to have this piece of content. That is not personalization. Hi, Bob. Hi, Bob. Hi, Bob. Right? That is not personalization. That is, but bringing in the context that does Bob have any friends at his company that is also interested in our products? Is Bob a current customer or prospect? Does Bob have like tickets that are in red and he's very unhappy with our products or his what is his sentiment? Bringing all of that context in together to power personalization. I think that goes going to go really nicely with Chris's question that we're going to talk about intent, right?
Thanks for taking the question, Bob and Jessica. I think my personal takeaway would be the personalization aspect of making your own brand identity. So thanks for that.
Thanks, Venkat. Hey,
Brilliant.
Chris.
There we go. It's working. Yeah, so I was hey Bob, it's been a bit since we've done a podcast together, so I'm
It's a pleasure. I look forward to the next one.
glad you invited me today. Yeah, I wanted to ask you about intent data, right? So it seems like that's the flavor of the day as well in terms of what is it? Should I trust it? What source should I use? I have very strong feelings about it, but I wanted to get your thoughts on where do you come down with intent data? Where is sort of valuable use, or where is it a bit of a fool's errand?
Yeah, I've been using intent data for right when for 10 plus years. I mean, who isn't? Who hasn't been using intent data? And I want to caveat that with I do think there's value in intent data. I want to talk about third-party intent data versus first-party intent data, and first-party intent data with AI is like a huge, even more of an unlock. So third-party intent data, I think I see the market changing, right? Third-party intent data, there was very like third-party providers. Each provider had its own flavor of advantage, disadvantage. You pick the flavor of the week. I'm sure many of us on this call have used the plethora of intent providers. I think that was what in the pre-AI age, that was our surrogate of, finding signals, finding context, right? That was like that was the way that we could do it when, with the technology that we had with the
Right,
situation.
someone clicked on some asset that was relevant to what we were selling, and so that's better than nothing, right?
It's better than nothing because it was a
Yeah.
surrogate for modeling as close to reality as we could get to, and it's a signal, right? For a good or bad, like I've known plenty of companies that have, I mean, I've written business cases where it shows benefit, yada, 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 right? There's caveats. That's a different podcast of like third-party account-based intent data. Then there's people intent data. But here's the thing, like with AI, people are building all kinds of things, right? I mean, you can go anywhere and go automate, understanding intent from people's LinkedIn posts, sentiment, right? You can go build your own engine. And there, that's a different podcast on build versus buy
Yeah.
AI, right?
Yeah.
That's a different one. However, what we haven't, the gold mine of data that all of us have all had but haven't been able to access, that is now accessible with AI, is first party intent data. If you think about what's trapped in all of the different systems and it's unstructured data, why have we not been able to tap into it? Because we can't scale it. I can't possibly put every URL and keep on top of the text that is on that website to know that you are interested in solution X or solution Y, right? But with AI and with AI plus agents plus pulling in that unstructured data in a way that is now knowable and contextual and activation. Actually, that's not a word, but I just made it up. Activationable, activatable. Whatever, the ability to activate. How about that?
Yeah.
The ability to activate. I don't know what the word is, but the ability to activate, if you think about it. So for example, um, Right, like I have built so many first party, like looking at like solution interest, scoring, product interest to kind of as a surrogate to reality of like what are you interested in? Bob's interested in, solution A and B, but solution A scores higher, so we're going to put you in a solution A nurture. That was what the technology could do, and actually it was pretty fancy compared to like what everyone else was doing. So I'd like to, that's what I've been
Uh-huh.
doing that for a while. However, what we can do now is we can have, hey, not only did you click on this email and click on the website, but AI can also is knowable the words on the website and the words in the email, and it will pull all of that with AI, unstructured data and intent, and categorize it into, oh, this was about solution A. Therefore, right? So those types of information, that to me is intent. Intent also has context around, right? Like especially like I don't know about the folks here, but we sell enterprise accounts. We have 35,000 at Adobe. We have 35,000 accounts in our ICP, right? Buying committees. There's multiple people. It's different when one person from a company stops by my trade show booth versus five different people from the same company have interacted at the trade show booth and they've come to the workshop, they've done the thing. Someone else also,
Yeah.
went on the website and spent blah, blah, blah on the pricing page. But if you think about it, the context is spread everywhere. That's first party intent data. So, like, I want to challenge the market. I want to challenge the go to market teams to think about intent differently. It's almost like I'm a Star Trek fan. They have and they're always in the lounge. They're always shooting like 3D chess, right? It's like we went from 2D chess to 3D chess. I just played 3D tic-tac-toe with my 6-year-old and I lost, right? Because it's like a new dimension.
I lost reversely to my 12-year-old and I was just heartbroken. But yes, I know what you mean.
Right? Right? It's like, what is
Yeah.
thing? Right? So I challenge you all to play 3D chess because intent isn't about, it's like, how do we think about things? We think about things linearly, like 2D, right? So we think about like, hey, we had 500 people register this webinar, 50 of them came. We sent here's the recording email, we do the follow-up, but like there is intent where out of those, were those customers or not? We have advocates in there or not? Is someone an opportunity or not? I had like five people from one company registered. I'm like, that even if none of them showed up, that is a different signal.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think what's interesting in you talking through this is I'm trying to figure out progression, right?
Hmm.
So the difference between intent and progression in terms of activity to show interest versus are they taking the next steps in the purchase process, or are they ready for this? The new customer orchestration is the new fancy
Yes,
word for customer journey, right? And so, can you actually orchestrate the journey on
yes,
how someone is progressing
yes,
beyond just looking at a signal based on activity?
absolutely. And that's actually the transformation that Adobe went through. And I spent a lot of time talking to our customers about the Adobe story, about the Adobe transformation, on how exactly what you're talking about, right? We know all the things. We know accounts, we know
Yeah.
signals, we're trying to do progression. And so part of it too is we changed our org structure to have journey managers, right? Where, right, like I always had like here, I own the email COE team, I own the webinar COE team, I have the web team, right? They're verticals.
Hmm.
Experience goes like this. So why don't we have people in marketing called journey managers that also think about the cohorts of people and the accounts that go like this, right? In addition to like there's the people that like send the emails, there's the people that send the webinars, etc. And so and pivoting the metrics for that, which is we're not talking about sales stages. We have like I don't want to call them marketing stages, but essentially account progression stages. And I've done account funnels, but this is actually different. It's a two-dimensional thing, and I can send you the slide afterwards. And it's about, do we know that one dimension is, do we know all the right people that need to be there, right? Like, are we like personas, you can call them buying groups, you can call them buying groups, whatever. So it's like the
Yeah.
depth of we don't know anyone, meaning they're not in our database, to yes, we have them, right? The second dimension is around engagement. To your point, right? There's a
Mhm.
difference between knowing them and are they
Yeah.
engaged? And so if you think about this matrix, and we have like 9 boxes, right? And we have people, journey managers, that are focused on progressing the people in the accounts that are in one box, progressing them adjacent to the next box, right? So if you think about adjacent, it's like
Oh,
it can go this
yeah.
way, right? Which is I have the people, I want to engage the people that I have more, which is very different than I have people, but I don't have all of the people. I'm going to be focused on acquiring the people with the context of where are they? Because if you think about acquisition, acquisition goes from left to right, and I have no idea if that's showing up on the screen correctly, right? Acquisition can be at that nobody's engaging, acquisition being at accounts that are engaging, but they're kind of like middle, right? Acquisition means could be like, hey, they're pretty darn on the funnel, but we haven't acquired the CFO, right? We don't have the power, the powers that be, right? Those are very three different strategies, right? Oh, did you have your hand up? Or is that a
No,
was that intentional?
yeah, no, no, I don't. That's particularly helpful. It's a different context to think about this, where
Yes.
the other way we're thinking about it is renewals as well. Like it's a journey for the renewal of software solutions
Hmm.
in
Value
addition to acquisition.
realization,
But that's
differentiation.
helpful. Yeah,
Yep.
we're longtime Marketo partners for about 12 years now, and so we're seeing the industry progression in those pieces. But thanks for your thoughts on this. It makes me think about it in a little bit of a different context than what I had previously.
Awesome.
Thank you, Christopher. So we have Daniel coming up, and then I'm going to bring up the next poll question while we're at it. Um, Dan, nice to see you.
How's it going? Hey, Jessica.
Hi.
So my question is, how are you using agentic AI in your everyday, and do you have a preference for GPT versus Claude, OpenClaw, all that good stuff?
I get that question a lot. I get that question a lot.
I
That's
just
not
see
the right
people
question.
buying Mac Minis, and I'm like, what's the next step? And I'm seeing all this content. It's like you said, so overhyped. Everyone's like, you can use it to categorize your folders. I'm like, I already do that on my own. Like, you're right. It makes life worse, pretty
Right.
much.
And so here's a couple of things. One, right? Because it's like I'm always like I'm always if people have followed me or people know me, I'm always about the hot take, and I'm always like, well, let me tell you what's going to happen 5 steps from today, but that no one's talking about yet. Um, we are causing so much agentic chaos, right? So much. Right? Because we're just throwing spaghetti at the wall. And there's always, when there's a new technology change, everyone's doing it. So you kind of got to do it, right? Because everyone's doing it. And then you're just the fool left behind if you don't do it. Right? And I always say, my always hot take is that's not the right question. You go pick whatever tool you want to go do. You go experiment. You go try something. There's going to be a new tool in 6 months. Who knows? That's not it. The thing, right? Because we're all being like, how do we stay relevant? And I came up with something yesterday because we had our internal AI day and I got to find it because I wrote it down. And I was like, um, practice over perfection.
Mm.
Practice over perfection, right? Because we're so paralyzed. Like, which tool do we choose? I'm like, just pick one and try it and fail. So you stay relevant because you will learn. I don't know. I don't know what problem you're trying to solve for. That's why I'm like, it's not, and hopefully you're not taking offense to this, Dan. And I hope you take this in jest, to the point, which is I'm trying to make. It's like, well, what's the problem that you're trying to solve for? Let's start with that. I taught a workshop called how to build use cases, right? Because I see this in every go-to-market team. And I'm guilty of it too. Like I'm like, I don't know where to start. So I'm just as guilty of it too. But I don't, take necessarily take my own advice. Um, you
I
know,
think though in 6 months we're not going to have a big competitor to GPT or Claude, right? They are the two biggest in the game, and specifically to agentic, right? So if we want to use an example, like if you're going to replace an SDR or a sales rep with an agentic AI for outreach or doing the orchestration of seeing the intent signal and putting them in that outreach cadence, like which one would you choose? How would you set it up? Have you done something like this in the past?
hmm yes. And I think, and here is why you're not gonna like my answer where it says it depends. Sorry. But here's the framework to think about, right? Um, and this is more so not so much for you, but for like kind of how does this apply to everybody else, right? Because it depends on the environment that you're in. Like for example, we only have access for certain tools. Like we don't have access, right? That is not within my control about what tools that we have access to. So it's going to differ from company to company. The second thing is, I don't know what your governance policies, I don't know what your trust policies, I don't know what any of that is, right? So that's why, like, disclaimer, I'm not a lawyer, nor do I play one on TV. So those are the things that I think about, like, who has access to what data? What does your company allow you to do? Um, that that part. I think what is more important, because I get this all the time, which is, okay, great. Which job can we replace with AI? And that I challenge people's thinking because that will get you a one-time efficiency gain, and then you're going to be back in square one because then you're going to have to go figure out like, well, next month, what's the next efficiency gain? Where it's penny wise, pound foolish, and this is a very unpopular opinion. But I think I would stand by it so that I hopefully I'm still standing in 5 years, which is we need to stop, right? Like, okay, so you have an AI SDR writing crappy emails instead of a human writing crappy emails. How have we solved the problem? We haven't solved the problem. What problem are we trying to solve for? And almost we need to really think about process engineering and reimagining the process. We do not want to AIify, agentify. We do not want to agentify processes that were built in a pre-AI era. To continue to provide value to the company and to orchestrate those customer experiences, let's start with the customer first. And then really think about like what problem are we trying to solve for and how do we solve it with new processes in the age of AI and just blow up the whole model and question. It might be, right, in the short term that, because of pressures from the company, we have to use AI, we got to do it now. And the hot thing is, AI SDRs, et cetera, we got to do it. But in the back of your mind, think about how you're going to re-engineer the entire process. The thing that I do think about when you're talking about AI SDRs and all that whole thing is my 2026 word is context, and you will hear it every talk that I give is around context. What are we trying to do with marketing to SDRs, SDRs to sales? We're trying to pass context along. If you think about why do we do scoring? Because we're trying to pass context. Should you pick up this lead or not? When you're trying to like summarize notes, now you can use AI to summarize notes. What are we trying to do? We're trying to pass context. That's actually the problem that we're trying to solve for. How do we get the context to go through all of our systems and all of our processes and all of our touch points so that it feels like a coherent customer experience on the other side? That's the problem that we have to solve for, right? That's the more important problem that we have to solve for than like, how am I going to identify my BDRs, right? At the same time, how do we make super BDRs, right? How do you figure out like who are the high performing BDRs and how do we identify that, right? How do we make them superhuman? Or maybe, right? Because how many people want to buy from maybe depending on your business, how many people want to buy from an AI bot or an AI agent, right? Because actually the true thing is what is the right? Because you're trying to book meetings. Now we want this AI SDR to then book meetings. Why? Why? To talk to a human or talk to an agent, right? What are we really trying to solve for, right? And really bringing it in and connecting it to what do you think the future of websites is going to be? I think it's going to be an LLM prompt.
Nice.
I love that. I love that. And it's so true. And like you said, that and like we've talked about before, kind of that concierge model, where the idea that AI should, make the human seller the most informed person in the room, rather than, like you said, taking, a BD that is sending out, junk emails to begin with, and changing that over to an AI agent doing the same thing, but working, hand in hand with the AI tools that we have, to really, just be a step above, what we would be able to be if we didn't have that at our disposal.
Love it. Um, Content libraries, searchability, accessibility, pretty split, 50-50. And at least everybody has
Findability and
content.
reuse. Findability and reuse is the hot words for content. And I don't know how many of the people in this call are talking about content supply chain, right? But what we started out talking about, right? Like the creating AI slop content and like getting stuck. Um, right, because people aren't thinking about the entire content supply chain from end to end. From what AI do I use to go create content? Because not all AI is the same, and not all AI models are the same, and they're changing so rapidly to um, creating content, findability, right? Because otherwise they're not organized or not chaos. What does that lead to? What is the business problem that leads to? Findability and reuse, right? I don't want to create a throwaway piece of content, for every single person. That seems like excessive. And there's many analyst reports that say like 80% of the content's really the same. It's about when you use it, 20%. 20% is different. I don't need to make like, right? It's just Bob needs this content right now, you know? Maybe Josh needs this content in 4 weeks. Same piece of content. But you can't deliver that if you can't find it. If you can't find it, you can't reuse it. So findability and reuse are actually the words that should be more important than like, hey, let's go create a whole bunch of content. And AI, that's where AI really steps in because how many people I have administered so many taxonomy, naming conventions, and how many times do you think they're followed?
So I brought up both Haley and Dara. I think you're on mute, but Dara's got to leave in a few minutes. So
Okay, great. Not the leaving part, but like, hi.
yeah,
Good to see you all.
Hi, part.
Thanks for letting me hop in here. Jess, it's good to see you. I haven't seen you since you were at Cloudflare. I loved your thoughts on intent data and kind of being more inclusive about gathering all of that up. But I had a question for you about sort of the data layer. And as
Mhm.
organizations are approaching these projects and improving the good that's coming in, what's your take on whether people should be extremely inclusive and sort of bring all that data in at all costs, then deal with it later? Or being sort of more judicious and only looking for the highest quality signals that have already been cleansed? Is there a happy medium? I've seen all different variations. I wasn't sure if you had any
Of
thoughts on
course I have thoughts. When do I not have thoughts? That's why I'm here, Bob, right?
Yeah, that's what you're for.
Okay. And this is and this is the like in our at Adobe, our marketing technology team, like this is our philosophy, right? And we just happen to also make the products that we use. We absolutely drink our own champagne. The philosophy is really around bringing the data that we need closer to the point of activation. And let me expound on that. I think, again, my hot take, not where usually what people don't say, right? This whole idea of like there's the CDP and there's CDP companies, and we also do sell a CDP, but like the whole concept of a customer data platform or the whole concept of this like data lake or whatever you want to call it. I don't even want to give it a name because I think that the naming thing just confuses everything. This idea of single source of truth is BS.
Hmm.
Okay? Because there's different purposes. Right? I don't need to know employee data or HR data or payroll data or like I don't need it, but there's a different purpose. Someone else might need it. And so
Right.
I've seen the previous company, which you know where it came from, previous companies, or lots of companies out there just sit and have philosophical arguments about what the single source of truth is. Let me tell you, that is a myth. That is a mirage. There's a single source of truth for what you need it to be, but it's going to be a single source of truth with maybe what I need it to be, right? IT is going to
Right.
need something different than what marketing is going to need. So we just need to get over that part, right? This idea, right? Okay. So if we take about for marketing or for what we need to create, not just marketing, because I think it's a go-to-market, right? For go-to-market, well, what do we need to create and orchestrate a customer experience? That data, for example, lives in our data layer, Adobe Experience Platform for us. Adobe, right? Because that's also something that we
Hmm.
sell to, the Adobe Experience layer. And then that's where all the data goes because it's closer to the activation
And where it could be actioned on.
and where it
Right.
can be action because it's
Yeah.
closer to the activation. That's why like everything is around real time because
Yeah.
it's about the customer. Because customers want or people want that hyper personalized in real time. I want to feel like you know me. And so
Yeah.
that's why put the data that you need closer to the activation. Do we bring everything in? No, no, of course not. That would be silly if I don't need to activate on it. Right? So
Right.
is it about high quality or not? Well, it could be okay quality, but if it's like something that I want to segment off of,
If it enriches an experience you're trying to accomplish,
sure.
or if it gives you a dimension maybe you didn't have before, Very
Absolutely.
helpful. Yeah, that's good. That's
Absolutely.
great.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Haley, nice to see you.
Hi, yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. I'm really excited. This has been a brilliant conversation so far. And Jessica, Spencer, like, thanks for all of your insights here. I have kind of I mean, it could be a big question, but I'm gonna try to keep it like related, like related into really what we're talking about. There's been a few things you guys have talked about, especially in the last couple minutes, about like solutions for use cases. And I think, in marketing, we have like for better or worse, we have a million use cases that we're all trying to
We all
solve.
do, right? Like,
Yeah, with like the
so
help of
many things.
AI. And in some of the tooling, I feel like we're in this era where it's like um best in class kind of pointed things to solve the problem, right? We mentioned that with content earlier, but it can go the same for like research and data, and right there's like, and then there's also kind of where certain tools that exist at different parts of the organization as well. Like if your company has like an enterprise subscription to one of the larger LLMs, or is like built a RAG on top of that. I'm curious on two things. Like, one, I would love to hear, especially coming from a place like Adobe, like how large enterprise organizations are really thinking about that air traffic control across those systems for any given function or the whole org. Like, starting to hear a lot of things about like AI gateways and MCP and stuff like that, right? And I know that like to some degree that might be more for a technical audience, and like a marketing leader doesn't have to have that mastered. But what I've also
You
learned
know
is
it. I mean,
that
you,
like,
you need to understand more of
yeah,
it
you
now
have to
than
understand it.
ever.
And I guess that's the part too, is like what parts of that do you think that we as like leaders or like, operators need to understand, so that like when we're building from the bottom up, we're being conscious of that and supplying the right information to make those like systems of air traffic control work.
No, absolutely. And that's why, right, like I've been a technology, a MarTech person for a really long time. And it's like what's old is new, like applying all those principles of,
Mm.
making all the systems together. So one, find yourself a good MarTech person, right?
Job
They're going to be more,
security. Like,
well, there's no job security in this day. I'm just letting you know, let's just be real. But those are, here's a couple of concepts that I think are turned upside down, right? The whole concept of I think there's two things that are related to your question. The whole concept of build versus buy totally flipped upside down. We'll touch on that in a minute. And I think the whole concept of best in class, what is it? What is it? Best of breed versus platform, that's also flipped upside down. So let me start with the build versus buy. And it's not, and I think the conversation has changed now. It's not just do I build or do I buy? Everyone's going to do both, right? Everyone's going to do both. And are you set up strategically? And you're asking all the right questions, right? As a marketer, what does the future of marketers look like? What does the 2030 marketer look like? And it goes from execution to orchestration and the orchestration of agents asterisk asterisk without orchestrating agentic chaos, right? We're not talking about orchestrating customer experiences. That was an earlier conversation, but like, how do we orchestrate without agentic chaos? Okay, the build versus buy part. Everyone's going to have build their own LLM, and it's going to need to be able to talk to, the ones that you buy and in between. There is, and I will tell you this, having been here at Adobe and watched them build products for ourselves, having built products for other people, building agents is not for the faint of heart. This whole like I doom scroll LinkedIn all day long. And you hear these people that are like, look what I vibe coded over the weekend. And this, right? Like that's cool. Really cool. Let's talk about governance. Let's talk about the AI agent, not like rogue deleting stuff that happened at a company with three big letters that started that we all know about, right? Like just go Google that or ask ChatGPT, whichever one. Is that a thing anymore? Right? Like it's a different world. And the biggest thing that I think, and it's going to be related and tied back to it, especially as a marketing leader, in the future, when the moat is everyone can build, everyone has AI to go do the thing, right? So your competitive moat just got a whole lot smaller. The only thing left, the differentiator, is trust and brand. Brand is going to make a comeback. Brand is going to be the thing that differentiates, because everyone's going to give me this, everyone just can just use AI to like build the thing that, a competitor had like overnight, right? So the only thing that you have left with us humans is brand. So in order to do that, if you just build agents left and right, and you go delete someone of your customers' data, as I'm sure you've heard these stories, right? That's no on trust. So now what's in is governance and safety and trust. And building an AI agent at enterprise scale that does that is not for the faint of heart, right? Like it's not like, I mean, cool. I mean, we can prototype things so much faster. I mean, it's amazing. Like I'm not like, but you have to use it and you have to use it in the right way. Like with privilege comes responsibility. And this is like, I think a perfect time for that too. I think the second thing is people are like, oh, I'm just gonna do this agent, this agent, this agent, this agent. I'll just buy all these AI tools and it'll be fine. Now, as a person of a system person that has, connected lots of data and integrated them, integration is like integration. And I come back to my word of context, right? So if I buy or build or whatever, I have all of these AI tools. Now I have to figure out how to get them to pass context to each other.
Mm-hmm.
That's not for the faint of heart either, which also takes humans. Yes, can we augment with AI? Sure. But now you've just gotten more agentic chaos. And so that's why the the you have build versus buy and you have best of breed versus point solution versus platform. One, the tools that we're going to use, a lot of them haven't been invented. There's going to be so many new ones, right? Two, if there's so many new ones, do I want to spend my time passing context around to every single agent? Because there's gonna be a lot of agents, right? If the world of the future is like humans sitting around agents, like half the time when you're using an agent, it's about giving them context, right? When you write a prompt, a really good prompt has a lot of context, right? And so if you're on different platforms, or you can have agents that are all on one platform, right? Because just because there's an integration between something, as I'm sure many of you know, like with technology, like are they talking the same language? Do they receive the data in the format? Right? There's a lot that goes into, oh, yeah, we have an integration with that. Like, what does that really mean? Just because there's an integration doesn't mean it's usable. Or it's like, yeah, of course, you can drop that data over here, but is it usable in the way that you want it to be? And that's a lot of the time, right? So if you're trying to string a whole bunch of different platforms around, MCP is a way for you to talk to different model. So like we build MCPs into all of our stuff so that because we know that people are going to build, buy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a way to kind of like tap into like build that pipeline into that. That's what MCP is for. You still need humans to have a strategy, right? To your point, bring it back around to like we could do so many things. There's so many AI use cases. What do we do? What do we solve for? What tool do we use? All of those things. Um,
I think the strategy too, and then I think, everything that you're talking about makes a lot of sense at that kind of content layer. And I'm not talking about like marketing content, but more just like outputs. But I think the thing that I'm starting to it's keeping me up at night a little bit is that decisioning layer for when, okay, we're getting really good at building sophisticated agents, whether we're building it or we've bought a good
right.
solution now. And now we're starting to learn how to connect them because of things like MCP is like helping that. And I think the smart companies are really building into that to make it easier. But then how do we tell which one, like who's in charge in which instance, and like how to fire that off? And that's where I'm like, how much of that do I need to know? Or at the
All of
technical.
it, right? So that's what I'm
Mhm.
saying. That's what I'm saying, which is, and again, this is just, hey, we're all in this new tech, I mean, new technology, and that's why I come at it a little differently, which is before we go and like solve point problems, take a step, right? Like everyone like, great, let's go make a whole bunch of content. And then all these content companies came up, right? And I'm like, do you know that there should be that you use a different model for if you need something to be physically pixel perfect versus an image versus people versus short form content versus long form content, right? And like, what do we do right
Exactly.
now? What do we do right now? If we don't like the image, we reprompt it. And so it doesn't save history versus that's what I'm saying. Like building an agent is not for the faint of heart. I mean, like, do you really want to go be a product developer and be an expert in building agents and understanding how a marketer is going to prompt, but actually build it into your small learning model? right? And so like you can choose to go do that, or you can go choose to be a strategic marketer. I choose to be a strategic marketer. There's so many models. Like I prefer to go to a prompt and be like, this is what I want to do, and it's going to be smart enough. There's a second layer, a decisioning, agentic decisioning layer. Is it Nano Banana that I should be using, or like whatever model that has it, or is it Gemini? Is it right? Versus I go to a prompt, it picks the right one because it understands the intent. That is what an agent should be. Now, I don't have the expertise to build it. I'm just going to let the experts do that, right? I want to be an expert in marketer and prompting that to go do the thing that I need. And that's why I'm like, we're just going to let this swing. People can build a whole bunch of stuff and then they'll figure out that, it's a lot harder, right? Because we see all this hype and stuff like that, right? How are you going to keep up with all the models? How do you know if you built something on a model and that model disappears tomorrow, then what? Right? So you got to build for agents. If you were going to build, you got to build for agents to accommodate, right, the models that exist today, what they're supposed to be used for, all of the iterations that are coming out fast and furious, new ones, and what happens when it gets sunsetted. So we never like go with just one model in the background, right? But like that seems like a full-time job because it is. I want to go be a marketer and go to market. And this is where it feeds into the build versus buy. What do you strategically build and what do you strategically let the people that know what to do the thing. And the second thing is like you're encountering what I'm talking to everyone else is like, great, we solved the point solution. And back to what Spencer and I were talking about actually previously, like we just moved the pile of stuff one shift over, which is okay, great, now what? And then now we're duct taping solutions instead of wait, well, I mean, let's take a step back and like, what is the problem that we're trying to solve for and make sure we solve for the whole thing, right? Slow down to go fast is what I always remember from my CMO mentor. We got to slow down to go fast. Now, not a lot of companies aren't ready to hear, don't want to hear that, and they aren't, and you can't. You can't. You can't. But I'm telling you all now so that you can have in the back of your mind. Yes, go do the thing to show like, hey, we did the thing with AI, but in the back of your mind, it's like, hey, we actually got to slow down and actually solve for the whole problem because you're feeling it right now. Because what are you going to do? You're going to exponentially pull in more things that now you got to stitch together with duct tape. And now you just made it exponentially harder. And now we're going to end up in agentic chaos.
That's right. I loved that word that you used earlier, agentic chaos. That's been great. Thank you so much for speaking to that.
Thank you, Haley.
Thanks, Haley.
I'm going to present this poll results for about this whole challenge of AI versus human, or how they interact, or what's humans' role in this next stage. And so humans are, they're going to be about strategy and empathy mostly. And somebody out there, and if you want to let us know, thinks that AI is going to be everything, no more humans.
Well, that was me.
Okay, Jeff.
I want to send my kids to farming camp. Well, so when the robots take over the world, they can grow food for us.
That's actually sound advice. That, plumbing, electricity, those are the smart things to know for now. Eventually, the robots will take care of all of that. As you remember, Picard had robots working his orchard, right, Jessica, in the Picard series. So I had made a comment about the SDR layer, getting rid of the SDR layer, and Jessica has alluded to this through her conversation. And, I've always looked at Jessica as sort of like the PhD professor of marketing ops, over the years kind of thing, and continues to do so. But we're not thinking big enough. And Jessica, you alluded to this. We're not thinking big enough about how to use AI. And I've made comments about why are we wanting to use AI for GTM when we should be using AI to solve for FTL, right? Faster than light. And if we look at something Workday has done recently, and I want to say I'm not recommending any companies or solutions, but it's more of this is what one platform has done to think about the future. Workday bought Sana, and Sana is a portal to your data. And the CEO during a talk talked about how he imagined his platform being used. And it's essentially like when you use Gemini in your Google Workspace, but it's on steroids. And it looks at all your structured, unstructured data. It gives an example of looking at millions of contracts at one time and having it look for risk mitigation across all these contracts. This is something humans would never consider doing because of the scope of the project, right? And this is why when I see all this discussion about an SDR layer, and Jessica, you did allude to this earlier on, we're not thinking big enough, especially when you talked about the data points in your when you're looking at predictive analytics, how you started with 30,000 data points and then you hit millions of data points once we cracked the genome. We're not thinking big enough. I feel that we are limiting ourselves to trying to automate the SDR function. Um, it's not thinking big enough.
But I mean, if you, I mean, which is like the perfect example to like, okay, let's take a step back, right? We all know what the SDR function is. If you think about it, an SDR function is to do what? It's because we don't know enough about you to answer your question, right? Or so they want to talk to a human because they couldn't figure out, right? The contact us form, fills it out, goes to an SDR for a couple of reasons. They couldn't find the answer to whatever they were looking for. So they need to find a human to basically connect them to the answer, right? In a very very expensive way. The second thing, if you think about an SDR, is we think based on your behavior of an MQL score, what we're going to talk to you so we can sell you something. Right? Is that a problem that the customer has? Or is that because that is our surrogate way to, if we throw enough spaghetti at the wall, that we can predict is good spaghetti, that's sticky spaghetti, then we can go book meetings so that we can drive revenue. So what we're really trying to do is find the needle in the haystack. We're trying to do in all kinds of ways, and the SDR is an expensive way, but a proven way to like go get those revenues and get in front of people.
But I do want to throw something out, and you alluded to this about building agents isn't for the faint of heart, right? So
It's not
what
for
you if you start to realize how software was priced, for example, like say you went and got a subscription, basic subscription of 6 cents, starting at $70,000, and the value it's priced at that because they're looking at what it would cost in a salary to do some of that work. And eventually what's going to happen, all of these layoffs of marketing ops, rev ops people, whatever, uh, they're going to get replaced by growth hackers, which is what we can now call GTM. GTM engineers is essentially growth hackers from a decade ago. You're just replacing and they're going to tell them to build the solution. Well, let's drop Marketo, let's drop HubSpot. But realistically, tools like Marketo, HubSpot, Paminga, they all offer good value as marketing automation platforms. And your $100,000 license, or whatever your license is, for you to replace to get the same effort and results, you're going to have to hire a lot of people to build something. So the cost savings is very, I want to say ethereal. I don't think that's the right word.
Do you
But
know
it's
some of the companies? Do you know some of the companies who like slashed all of their their customer service, right, and replaced them with AI and all the
yeah, there
things?
was one, but then they rehired everybody, didn't they?
Yes, but there's also a different one where after they looked at the token cost because it's by usage, ended up
Yes.
being more expensive
Correct.
because it's not free. These things aren't free.
Yeah.
And also it's not optimized because different prompts cost different things from processing. But as a user, I don't know what something costs. I'm just going to prompt it, right? And so again, different webinar for how our budgeting operating model needs to change when we're going to a token based. And then from the flip side, the business model, how do we charge, how does, how do we, like the F for we in the world, charge for outcome based, right? There's a lot,
Yeah.
there's a lot to pontificate on.
Yeah.
Jeff, I think one thing that you said that I do agree with is, in some cases not thinking big enough, but in other cases it also has to do with the fact that when we really look at it on a much larger scale and think bigger, we do run into those bandwidth issues, not from a human perspective, but from a machine perspective, from an AI perspective, and that's why if you look at GPT and Claude and all the other tools out there, there's been billions upon billions of dollars being pumped into these because that's what needs to be ingested into those companies and into those platforms to move the needle a tiny bit. it's incredible how much we see the advancement, but on their end, it's like they're making strides that to us seem enormous, but there's still so much to be ironed out before we can, fully replace those type of jobs like an SDR, or a BDR or a plumber, electrician, like you said. But it's interesting. We're not
We're,
quite there yet, but
yeah, we're in interesting times. Oh, someone.
It is, we're definitely facing a paradigm shift, and it's fascinating. I had when I did my university degree, it was actually studying science, the impact of science on humanity. So I studied paradigm shifts, and to see it happening in real life every day as we go, especially with all the tech layoffs. Myself, I've been through a couple of them, kind of thing, and it's very interesting. I just think, well, maybe it's time to start gardening, right? But I really love the tech. I love, I'm taking Tyrone's um, new course that he just promoted, Tyrone Pretorius, right? He's developed some courses, and so I'm taking those, but it's also making me think as I'm building out an MCP server, I realize, like, really Marketo and Paminga, for example, are so good in that they have nested folders, inherited tokens. Like, these were such positive wins, or concepts that Marketo came out with. I don't know if Nicole Mossinger's on the talk today, but she was involved in the product team at Marketo at the time. That was such a brilliant user experience they created, and um, to use it effectively, you're actually doing things. You can do things as fast as writing your command. You want to clone a program template and create a new webinar. Well, you can just manually clone it as fast, or if not faster, than writing a prompt.
Yeah. And I know we're pretty much at time, right, Spencer? I know we've got a couple people that want to.
I'll zip it.
Yeah. Thank you, Jeff. Brendan, John, you had some final thoughts?
Yeah, I was just going to make a quick comment. Jessica, your point about the cost, because
yeah.
we talked about it or not. I mean, it's so expensive, right, to like run these things. And I don't know if anyone's on the call from Salesforce, so you could probably validate this, but I was a huge customer of Salesforce, and they came and gave us a presentation about how they set up their SDRs to actually respond to every single form fill, email, everything. And the reason was it was actually cheaper. It was cheaper to just let them slog through all that stuff and make sure they caught the right customers. Because, and my company had the same problem. You get like a really big customer, like $1 billion a year customer, and they fill out a form. They get so pissed. There's just so much risk. And so it cost way more to try to get the data and everything perfect. And I think this is kind of pre-AI, but I've heard that conversation so many times. So I just think the cost component is so important, even with AI. That was my comments.
Thank you, Brendan. Excellent. This has been a great talk. John, do you have a quick question? I know you had one from before.
Yeah. Thank you, Bob and Spencer, for hosting this, and I have great opportunities to join. And Jessica, you're my idol. I've been following you, and this is the great opportunities to meet you. Yeah.
It's nice meeting you
Hey,
too.
thank you. And actually, as per your experience, which I just wanted to know, then being I have learned with the AI tools, I know how it works, and I'm worried about how can team use AI to improve lead qualifications without losing the human judgments to, needed to understand real buying intents. I just wanted to know from your opinions. I mean, as per your experience.
Oh, we need another hour for that. I mean, I think at the highest level, right? Like
Yeah.
looking at your like lead qualification process, what are we solving for, right? It's the same thing. What is the process now? It was built in an AI, pre-AI age where you couldn't take unstructured data to make decisions. So you had to have rules-based things. Those are still good, right? And it's just like, how do we augment that as we transition into the future world? It's going to take us a couple lily pad hops to get to whatever the future will look like, where, we're mind melded with our computer or whatever the future would be. Right. But like, what is the problem? What is the challenge that we're solving for? We're trying to find the needle in the haystack. So what are the areas or points of areas, depending on your business and your go-to-market that is unique to you and your company, that AI could help and enhance, not like automating things that, it might be automating the insights, or it might be enhancing in the speed to insights when you're trying to retroactively look at your data about what is qualified and what isn't. So you get to more of a, making this up, always on improvement of models. We did it every quarter pre-AI because we would go look, we would do retrospective analysis, we would improve our lead qualification model, we would implement it, right? That's a 3 to 6 month cycle. Could it be faster? Could it be always on with AI? Right. So it depends. There's lots of opportunities to figure out like what is it that we're trying to do? Or is there different signals that we can now gather the intent that we would never go and, for example, read every comment in a contact us form to better qualify with that, you know? So it just, it's again, step back, reimagine the process.
Thank you. Jessica, thank you for your wisdom and your time. Spencer, thank you for everything. And our guests, you guys are wonderful. You guys are the co-stars of the podcast, and we're happy to have you and your input. So thank you all. Any final thoughts, Jessica, before we leave?
No, I think we covered a lot of it, right? It's an interesting time. It's exciting, but like, how do we not and how do we keep on top of everything, right? Practice over perfection. Try something, pick a tool, any tool.
Wonderful. Thank you all.
Love
Appreciate
it.
it. Thanks, Spencer. Anything
Thank you,
else?
everyone.
Yeah.
No, I think we covered everything, like Jessica said, and it was so good to reconnect again. And like we said on our last discussion here, fail forward. Continue to try, continue to learn and really advance alongside the AI evolution that we're going through.
I love it. Fail forward. Thank you guys. Take care. Bye-bye.